You know how hard it is to replace pigtails today? And some of these wires and connectors are so small. We've got a solution for that, and that's coming right up, right after this. Well, we're at the 2017 Auto Mechanica in Chicago, and I'm right here in the FindPigtails.com booth, and with me is Ruston, and he's an operations guy.
Yes, sir.
And this guy knows a lot about making repairs on some of these pigtails where the wires and the connectors are so small. And I'd like you to show us a little bit about how a repair could be done.
Absolutely.
But before you do that, why FindPigtails? Why your company?
So FindPigtails, we started about 5 years ago, and our goal was to be able to supply any connector for any application automotive-wise, all makes, all models. And from there, our goal was the best quality connector and best customer service. So we have a 2-day turnaround on anything you order, so there's no 5-day waiting period. The 2-day shipping is included in our pricing. All the pigtails we source are OE quality and or OE specific, so it's the exact same thing you would find on the car. And then all the wiring we source is an extremely high temp heat rating, so everything we do from start to finish, the repair job that's done on that car is going to be the best quality it can be. You're not going to have any issues with that work that's done. So our product that we send you is going to last for much longer than anything else would have factory-wise or anything else you would buy pigtail related.
Right. Well, that's an awesome testimonial and a pretty good commercial too, I will say. So basically, we want to take a look at how a repair like this should be properly done. And Ruston is the guy to do it. So
Yep.
show us how we can make a repair on a pigtail
Absolutely.
with such small connectors.
All right, so what we're going to do here first, I will do a quick D-pin of the connector because if you ever have one you're doing a repair on and you're able to just swap over the casing instead of doing a full cut and solder, you can do that. So we'll do a D-pin real quick, and then I'll show how to cut and solder and do the heat shrink. So let's start with the D-pin first. So we have specific tools that you use, and or a flathead screwdriver sometimes is your best friend, a flathead screwdriver and a pick. So we'll start here. So you got to get your casing off, and every connector is a little different, but we'll kind of show here. I'll pull the case all the way out so we can kind of see a little bit better. So that's our front lock. And so what we're going to go after is our inner pins, and they always are going to have a little piece of plastic that is going to actually drop down and kind of grab onto the pin to kind of lock it in place. So what our goal is to get in there, lift up that catch, and then we'll slide out our wire, if I can get in there, and so it'll release it, and we'll do the next one. So basically reach in there, lift up that little plastic lock, it'll release that pin, and we can get our wires out. Now, of course, if you were doing this to do the repair, you'd want to know exactly where those pins pulled out, or you'd have your diagram to kind of show you, and then you'd be able to replace them into the new connector. You can always do it one at a time, you know, how many ever, make it easy on you. So what we'll do, so say that these were damaged and we were swapping everything over to do a solder to put on a new pigtail. So what we can do, we'll go ahead and put this back in. So if you ordered a connector from us, it's actually going to come with about 10 inches of wire to make your life easy. So it's not trying to hook onto a little one. So like this connector right here, this is about how they come. It's about 10 inches of wire. So what we'll do, I'm going to use a plug-in soldering iron just because we're here at the show and it's easier. But always put your heat shrink on first, because if you don't, you're going to have a fun time cutting that back apart. So we'll put our heat shrink on. Now the heat shrink we use is pretty specific. It's got the glue inside of it, and it actually shrinks up to quite a bit smaller than what you would think. So it's a really big heat shrink for a big wire, but it will go all the way down to 18, 20 gauge wire. You normally splice about an inch back. You don't want to go too far because you don't want a bunch of wire hanging off, and you don't want to go too short because otherwise it's going to pull back and you're going to end up with the end of the wire poking through the through the heat shrink. And what your goal is to do a repair job that's going to last, that you're not going to have any trouble with, because you want to know that your work is done correctly. So we'll splice our other end back about an inch. Even these out real quick. All right. So both our ends are spliced back. We got about an inch. We got our heat shrink on. So now we're ready to go ahead and connect these together. so we can solder it up. So you start, and you're going to start with your wire just inside of your sheathing because you don't want it to poke over. So you just spin them together, and we'll do one at a time here. So you spin it, you want a smooth edge, you don't want anything sticking off, because once that solder gets on there, it's going to make a real hard point. So we want it as smooth as possible. And we warm up our soldering iron here. And a trick is don't leave the iron sitting here until it gets the wire hot enough. Let it get hot to where it'll melt the solder. And then you can kind of take your solder and melt it into the iron, right into the wire, and it'll just melt right in like butter, and it heats up the rest of the wire. Once it's a shiny, smooth, you can kind of see a little bit of the wire, then you know you're good. If it ends up being real thick and dull, then you know you got a cold solder joint, that's gonna be a problem. So we'll wrap around here, we'll do our other wire. So again, just stay inside the sheathing. We'll spin them together, twist it on each side. So you got your connection there. Same deal, iron. I don't let the iron get the wire completely hot because that's really hot, so kind of get it where it'll melt the solder and melt the solder into the wire. Just like that, make sure we're covered. And so like I said, that's the goal, kind of you see a little bit of the wire, it should stay a little bit shiny. If it's big and blobbed on there, you've got a cold solder joint, you're gonna have a problem down the road or immediately. And then from there, we're gonna add our heat shrink. A big goal is make sure you get the heat shrink in the right position. So you don't wanna be too close to one edge. So you can always hold your joints by each other to where you can kind of see where they line up. So we know we're about center right there. So instead of a heat gun today, we're gonna use a portable torch. It'll get the job done. You just gotta be a little careful when you're heating it up. You don't wanna melt the heat shrink. And so this stuff with the glue in it, as it heats up and it starts to melt that glue, it basically seals this connection so it's weather tight. So, you know, a butt connector, if you did a butt connector and that was it, you'd have to worry about rain, everything else. You kind of got to go around the wire. I don't stay in one spot too long because you will burn it. And we should be pretty close. And so your end result, you should have a little bit of glue sticking out on each side. Should be an even, smooth surface, no wires poking through. And then you know that that joint is sealed and good to go. It is not going to have any damage or corrosion. It will not let any weather in. So next one, I'm going to line it up per my old the other heat shrink I just did. So I know I'm centered. We'll start our iron again. And same deal, just kind of work it slowly, get it start shrinking up. Since this stuff starts out so big, it takes a second longer to shrink up. But it's preferred because you don't have to have a bunch of different sizes of heat shrink. You can basically start with just one. And we'll just work it back and forth, move around a little bit. So this is where the heat gun is kind of nice because you don't have to worry about burning yourself or the surrounding area if you're inside of a dash or something. But if you got enough room, you can make this work. In a pinch, a lighter definitely works. And that's it. So that one's done. So that's it. That's basically how you would do a D-pin, repin, and then a solder to put on a new pigtail.
Wow, Ruston, you really make that look easy. But it's definitely a good, solid, professional repair job. And that's the whole point, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I've been doing it about 20 years, so I've got a little bit of experience doing it. But anybody can do it, and especially with these videos, it definitely will help out, make it easy on you. But yeah, the goal at the end, like I said before, is you don't want to have to worry about your work. So when you're done after you've done a repair, you want to walk away knowing that if there was a problem down the road, it's not the work you did, it's something else, and it's just peace of mind. It makes it just that much better. The shops appreciate it, and makes your life a lot easier.
All right, now here's a really important question.
Okay.
How do we get a hold of you? How do we find out more about FindPigtails.com and the products that you offer?
Absolutely. So of course we have a 1-800 number, which is actually 844-255-5899, and we answer the phone immediately. If I don't get it within 2 rings, if it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. If it rings any longer than that, I'm going to be mad. From there, it's our website, FindPigtails.com. That has anything we carry basically is on there. We have it broken up vehicle specific, you know, so you can search Honda Accord 2016, high beam, low beam. We have it broken down by pin, so 2 pin up to 100-something pin connectors. You know, we've got all that on there. You can search those pictures. or you can just email us directly, info@findpigtails.com, and we'll get back to you usually within half an hour, sometimes even quicker, but we don't ever let it go a day or two.
That's impressive service. So we'll put all that information in the metadata down below. So if you're doing wiring and work like this with small connectors, big connectors, really any kind of connector, you really want to check this out, check out this product, and I think it's going to make your life a whole lot easier.